What time is it? It's time for another every other Wednesday.
Nice.
Well, let's get started.
So do you suppose the Calgary people are coming on to see Mike Kerr and they're upset that he's not here?
Probably.
Or they're coming on in hopes that Mike's not here and they're really excited?
Yeah.
We won't ask that question because on the
Either
ground,
or. And by the way, Carol, we're ignoring that answer. Blue skies, no clouds, and no snow. So.
Beautiful. Who's Mike Kerr? I love it. There we go.
Thank you, Steve. Well, we don't have the opening music because Richard's not here. So
no, but we decided that in lieu of not having the music here, we just get the entire audience to sing it.
Right.
Listen like a chorus. Now we can't hear them, but we're going to trust that everyone does it on their own at their place of work. Ready? Okay. What time is it?
It's time for another
every other Wednesday. Boop, 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 boop. And I think
Excellent.
that's actually better. So there we go.
Today's date, I know.
Today? Yes.
Oh, sorry. November 16th, 2022. Welcome, everybody. I'm sorry you're stuck with just the two of us.
I don't know why you're apologizing. I say kudos to you for being stuck with just the two of us. You guys are lucky. It's like buy a lottery ticket today. This is fantastic.
Well, and you can look at it the other way, that Richard and Mike are working today. We're not, right?
Yes, so. Those scoundrels.
Exactly. And today's kind of a potpourri, right?
Yeah, we've done this a handful of times before where we call it the brain trust. And we're going to try to get some ideas from the group or some of the biggest challenges that people have going on. So, not to throw anyone under the bus because that's not my style and I would never do that. But Mike and Richard had this wonderful game plan all played out and scripted and word for word exactly what we're going to say. And then at the last minute, I don't know if you guys know this, you're familiar with the term deadhead, where people follow the Grateful Dead. But both Mike and Richard, they love polka music. And so there's the equivalent of deadheads for polka music, and they ditched us. And so do we
put true or false? Because that is not true. But anyway,
right.
You want to tell everybody who you are?
My name is Sunay Nath, and I am an author and speaker focusing on performance and leadership based in Toronto, Canada.
What a coincidence. My name is Jeff Tobe, and I too am an author and speaker. I focus on customer experience. How do you make the leap from customer service to customer experience? I am based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but was fortunate enough a few weeks ago to appear on this show with Sunay because I'm originally from the Toronto area. So.
When you said what a coincidence, I thought you were going to say your name was Sunay as well, and that would have been a big coincidence.
That would have been a huge coincidence. That's right. So I'll get things started, but please, everybody, we want you to participate in this more than you have before. Tell us what's going on in your world as it relates to culture, questions that we might be able to answer, or as an audience, we may be able to answer. Don't forget, Sunay, I'm just going to do your job. Are you still warning people about the drop-down button?
Go ahead. You're on top of it.
Make sure that when you're replying, although it changed in Zoom, so we may be okay, but when you're replying, make sure you're replying to everyone, not just the panelists. Anna, thank you. My son has a maple leaf tattooed on his thigh. That's TMI. I don't know if we even need to know that, but I am also a maple leaf.
Is it inner thigh or outer thigh? Because that's the line of TMI. So
exactly. So I'll start things off because I just read I was sharing with you in the green room. Doesn't that sound formal? In the green room?
We're very fancy.
Yeah, that I just read an article on the top 8 trends as they relate to culture coming up in 2023. Want to guess what number 1 was? Put you on the spot.
Something about transition back to work or something, or
no, actually, number 1 was transparency. Thought that was interesting. How many companies have decided to, no matter how long they've been around, to be more transparent, whatever that means to each organization. So I'm curious what that means, first of all, to our audience in your organizations. And how about you, Sunay?
Oh, you know what? I believe that the same core values that were around from 200 years ago still apply today. And what we do is we go through these cycles and we come up with new fancy terms that mean the same damn thing. What is transparency? Transparency is communication. And we've talked about communication. Where does communication come from? Communication comes from trust. So the more I'm going to share with my people, whether it's my team or my employees, my above people, my below people, the more trust we have in the organization. And the more I hoard information, and the more I say, you're not privileged to that, or I don't trust you to have that, or you might take advantage of me, the more restrictive things become. So
Right.
transparency is communication, a la to 2023. So it's
Right.
nothing new. And I think that people are jumping on because it's the new buzzword.
Yeah, Greg, I think that's a mic drop because that's it, right? Transparency, a single source of truth. And the bigger your organization gets, the harder it is. I've shared with Sanjay that I'm working with a very large organization right now, 8,000 employees. And, obviously at that size, there's suspicion at all levels. They don't trust anybody, and they're not telling us the whole story, is what one of the people said that my contacts. I don't know how you write that in such a huge organization. They've just brought in a new CEO, so hopefully that he has the wisdom to know that that's what's happening at a grassroots level. So,
but here's the thing, though: when you get to a critical size, 8,000 being way beyond that critical size,
right?
You can take any room, a random group of 50 people. You go to whether it's a social gathering or you're going to an association meeting or whatever. I guarantee you, when you get sort of 50 and beyond, there are going to be jackasses in that room, and there are going to be super ninjas. And I'm using that as the two polar opposites of that continuum. And the jackasses are there for selfish reason, and they're trying to take. And you have the super ninjas who are there to give. And that happens to more extreme the larger the group gets. So when you have a group of employees or a team of 8,000 people, there are quality people in there. There's no question about it. But there are incompetent morons as well. And the concern is the incompetent morons tend to be anchors for everyone else and just hold the whole organization down. So, but despite having that, you're always going to have good people as well. So we just tend to get sucked into the anchors, the dead weight, because it's so predominant and it becomes so frustrating. But if we can somehow navigate and maneuver around that, you can go find those amazing people. If an organization is built to 8,000 people, it's because they've created value for customers. That's why they're there. And sometimes people kind of lose their way and they get sucked into the my language, the bottom 10. But if you have a bottom 10, you have to have a top 10.
Right.
So, sorry, I'm gonna give a specific question to the audience as we're kind of, you and I are rambling here.
Yeah.
But right now, what is your current biggest culture concern within your organization? What's keeping you up at night right now? Okay, so I'll go back to you and let people kind of mentally incubate on that.
Yeah, well, what's keeping me up at night is construction that they're doing right in my street in front of me. So if that's what you're asking, there's Wendy. Okay, I'm the director of operations, overseeing 6 long-term care homes in the interior and lower mainland of BC. Leadership is currently participating in the Seniors Care Leadership Academy, currently working with our site leadership. I assume that this is something that maybe you can elaborate, Wendy, but I assume it's something to better the patient or resident's experience, or is it to better leadership skills? I'm curious.
And further to that, since you're already typing, Wendy, that looks like a proactive kind of good thing, but what's keeping you up with regards to that?
Okay. Well, DEI is an interesting one that Frederick brought up. Right now in the organization I just told you about, DEI is a whole new initiative across the entire organization, much to the chagrin of many people in the organization who are trying to get their agendas, put in the top 10 priorities. So I get it. I think that's huge in organizations right now.
The DEI thing, again, we want to talk about history repeating itself. In the 90s, it was so, we had these anti-racism conferences and kind of subsided. Now comes out the new way of expressing it is DEI. I remember being part of an event where I spoke in like late 90s. It was called the Last Conference on Racism. And the reason they called it that was the idea is if you keep bringing it up, it continues to be an issue, right? We don't have the blondes versus brunette conferences. It just is. We don't think about it. We don't have the, you like the strawberry ice cream, I like vanilla ice cream, so we're going to make a big deal about it. So when it just becomes part of it, it just is. Then we no longer think about it. I mean, as a colored dude, I have a lot to say on the DEI piece, but for the most part, I roll my eyes at it, and it's just probably not politically correct to say it. And don't get me wrong, by no means am I suggesting that certain minorities or certain sexes or certain gender people have not been biased in the past, because they 100% have been. And to this day, not only in the past, it still exists today. But I think that if people just use common sense, and that's the problem if they don't, which is why we're educating them. But if someone is qualified, let them do the freaking job. If someone is good at doing what they do, let them do it. Doesn't matter age, doesn't matter color, doesn't matter sexual orientation, doesn't matter prefer strawberry or vanilla ice cream. I think that we blow it up too much and we go from one extreme to the other. We used to be a homophobic, sexist, bigotry society. And then we went from one extreme to the other extreme, and now someone says something wrong, something inappropriate, even borderline inappropriate, and their entire career of 30 years goes down the toilet. Yeah. And I go, we've gone from one extreme to the other, and eventually we're going to hopefully find this equilibrium that said, hey, let's use common sense. Let's treat people with respect and still have fun and not be afraid to make a joke.
You notice the comment from Greg in the box there? You're
ranting. What?
Here's the thing with DEI, I find as well, and it's funny because, again, I'm sorry, I'm going to refer to this large organization I'm working with, but I met one of their corporate attorneys, their corporate counsel, and he said, we've never been busier than because of DEI. He said, because everyone is so sensitive within the organization that they're always checking to make sure that what they're doing is okay, where they never did that before, right? And I get that to a point, they're setting up, my suggestion, they're setting up mentoring circles, and they want to make them either gender specific or race specific, because they feel like they need more women, they need more people of color in leadership roles in the organization. That's not being, there's nothing wrong with that, but then it gets into legalities, obviously.
And we need to watch that. And by the way, Lisa's saying what I'm saying without ranting. She said, I'm frustrated with DEI initiative. I'm seeing that it's just about checking boxes. 100% agree. It's absolutely important and easy to fix. Be a decent human being. Problem solved. Right. And this idea of having groups that have been marginalized and giving them some attention, I get it, and I see where it makes sense. I was recently doing some work with AFB, the American Foundation for the Blind, and they actually instigated something called the Blind Leaders Program. And so just like we've said with women or minorities, they've said this. They've said, look, there's not enough blind people in leadership roles. How do we help that? And I think that's what it comes from. When you look at it as an opportunity to grow rather than an opportunity to be treated like the other person. To me, again, we've had this discussion in the past, the difference between fairness versus equal. And I don't think people should be treated equally. People should be treated fair. And equal being everyone gets the same thing. The way it was explained to me when I was a kid, someone said, if you are playing a game of cards and you each get 5 cards, the equal thing is you all get the same 5 cards. The fair thing is you each get 5 cards from the same deck. And if you don't like your cards, you change the game. Right. So anyways, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, Lisa.
Yeah. I just want to finish.
You're wrong. I'm not ranting.
I want to finish Wendy's. That was just to us, by the way. I think he was trying to keep it private. So, but he was still telling you were ranting. I'm going to finish Wendy's conversation there if I can. She said, sorry, I said before I was finished, the priority in this leadership, whatever it was called, staffing and the huge cultural change in the industry, most notably with work-life balance. And that's what we're, obviously, I think work-life balance, by the way, was number 2 in that trends that I was reading. And I really think that the reason it was there is because no matter how hard we try, we're still trying to figure it out. People working from home, and we're still trying to figure out what is our, and Richard should be here. This is his area of expertise, but it really is, what is it going to look like in 2023, and how do we please everybody, which is never going to happen, right?
And you know, the whole cycle works like this. It's iteration after iteration. And to Greg's comment, he's saying, you know, it's affirmative action all over again. It
Yeah.
is. But I think that each time we go to a round of it, so like I was using anti-discrimination for the 90s, and now we're at the DEI. I think it gets refined. The process gets refined a little bit more each time. So to your point, work-life balance. We talk about work-life balance now, but 30, 40 years ago, that's not what we used to say. We used to say, you keep your work at work and you keep your home at home, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't very healthy either. But we've now said, wait a minute, you're a whole body person. If home life sucks, you can't do a good job. Well, how do we enrich it? And so I think that's what actually happens is we take a step and then we refine it a bit and we kind of drop a bit, and then we take another step and refine it a bit, and then we drop, and we just kind of continually, it's continual improvement. It's what it should be. So it's a natural process. It's kind of a long process, but it is actually, I actually think the system's working.
Yeah.
I think we're getting closer to that goal of what Lisa was saying is use your freaking common sense. You know, bring on the person that's most effective for the job.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my dad used to say that we used to wake, how did he put it? We used to wake up for work. He said, and this was before any of this, right? This is many years ago. He said, we used to wake up for work. Now we need to wake up for ourselves, with work being part of the day, right? And I think he was way ahead of his time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus he hated his work, so maybe that's what it is.
And I mean, again, there's another example of this whole notion. Before, it used to be, why no one changed careers? You started with Xerox, and 35 years later, you got the watch, and you skipped off into the sunset. And you know, people talk about this demographically. I think it has to do with demographics, but I also think it has to do with social acceptance. Yeah. And now, how many times do people change careers?
Right.
Because they're not happy, or because they're not a fit. And whereas before it used to be, or here's another example of, it used to be a badge of honor to not miss a day of school or work. You could be, you know, having the plague and coughing on people, but it was like, you got the perfect attendance. And we kind of come beyond that, kind of going, wait a minute. The problem is, you may have perfect attendance, but you come and you make 7 other people in our organization sick, and the loss of the productivity from you not staying home for one day screws us all. Right. And so it may be not the most effective thing. And again, these are just the iterative processes where we go, we thought we had it right. In fact, it was Scott Adams, I think, who writes Dilbert. You remember the Dilbert cartoon?
Yeah.
And he had this great model, this great quote. And it said something like, every physical representation of the universe we've ever known has proven to be wrong. Like, we used to think that the Earth was the center of the universe. We used to think the Earth was flat. We used to think the molecule or the atom was the smallest, most indivisible particle in the universe. On and on and on. And that's what we can see, feel, and touch. Right. Everything we've ever come up with, every model has been proven to be wrong. What makes us so sure we're right now?
Right.
And the answer is, we're not.
No,
100%.
We have to do the best we can with what we got, though, right?
Absolutely.
I love Lisa's comment. She said balance is just a verb. Sometimes there's more work, sometimes there's more life. Perfect, right? It's never going to be balanced.
Absolutely.
I chalk the shift up to the pandemic. Yeah, the shift to work from home and people connecting to what matters most in life. Yeah, because Greg, shift happens.
Yeah. Which is a great book. To Carol's comment, I have a question with regards to that, because I don't know. If you're wearing a mask and you're about to sneeze, what's the protocol? Do you still cover your mouth? You just sneeze, you lift up? I have no idea what that is.
You have to know if it's going to be like something coming out or just a sneeze. That makes a difference. I'm glad you asked that. So I got another question. You know, the other priority right now that I see, work-life balance, I see transparency. The other one that I want to add to that is, I think there's a prioritization of mental health, which is a great thing in culture today. I'm curious, and again, I'm going to ask the audience to answer this, but what are they doing in your organization to prioritize mental health from where it might have been 3 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah, and again, here's something that stair-stepping, and we've gone, I believe, from one extreme to the other. We used to, if you saw a counselor or a coach or a psychiatrist, it was deemed to be a sign of weakness, and you were a flawed human being, and there was something wrong with you. And now we've gone to the other extreme, whereas if you're not seeing one, then there's something wrong with you.
Right, right.
So,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, so many companies, depending on the size again, have SAPs, have not SAPs. We're at the right term?
EAP.
EAPs, thank you very much. I have EAPs that were never used, right? I mean, people didn't, they knew they existed, but people weren't using it. So I wonder if we have somebody in HR might be able to help us, but I'm curious if there's an increase in the use of just the EAP services.
Oh yeah, I would assume that it's been way better. In fact, I was chatting with an organization that was looking to, because again, with the employee assistance programs traditionally were dental and eyes, and then they started getting into things like chiropractors and massage therapy and physiotherapy. But now they're actually getting into life coaching. So I actually had an organization that approached me going, hey, a bunch of speakers, a bunch of coaches, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to actually offer this. So someone who needs a nutritional coach, or someone who's going through a separation, or someone whose kid is, going through a transition, or whatever it is, they're appreciating the value in those services. And I think it keeps expanding.
So we've got three different answers. Basically, Corinne says that no real actions when the workloads and staffing expectations continue. Not sure, maybe you can elaborate, Corinne, but Lisa says there's been a huge increase. Steve says normal utilization was 10 to 12%. I've seen up to 17% if it's well accepted and promoted. There's something else I want to blame HR about. In many organizations it exists, it's just not marketed, it's just not promoted. And I think now more than ever, maybe because of the pandemic, it needs to be. Carol is in a CPA firm, so they used to bring in a masseuse and people could sign up for a massage. I love that. Probably after April 15th, right?
Yeah, along that lines, you're saying about the promotion piece. I find that when I want to get my kids to eat new foods,
yeah,
and I'm sure for people that have kids know this, it's like fighting. It is. They don't want to try it. It's the wrong color. It's the wrong temperature. It's the wrong texture. It's whatever it is. But when you put them in a social setting where they're at their friend's house and their friends are trying or having that same food that they would never try it, they will be open to trying it. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that is sort of the best marketing. So this idea of bringing in a masseuse, and seeing, hey, here's a benefit. I think that is the most effective way to promote these sort of things. So yeah. when someone with clout within the organization talks about using these benefits, whether it be a coaching program, whether it be massage therapy, whatever it is, I think that's one of the most effective ways we can express. But even from a cultural standpoint, this is how we implement change most effectively. Yeah. When we actually, people with clout and recognition within the organization are using or doing things, other people kind of go, oh, that's the way we do it. I'm right. in, let's do it.
Yeah. I'm just curious, out of curiosity, Steve keeps mentioning EFAP. I'm curious what the F is. I've never heard
family?
That.
Is it family?
Employee and family? Maybe. I'll give you a prize. It is family. There we go. Sorry.
Usually, because the thing is, you guys probably don't know this because he's on his best behavior, but usually when Jeff thinks of an F word, it's not family.
I go with Carol, and it was food. That's
nice.
where my mind went. Sorry. So,
oh, jeez. Jeez,
yeah, dependents can access the services too. I thought they could in an EAP as well. So we don't talk about family at work. I like that. Okay. How about? So I'm just going to keep throwing things out. We have such a brilliant audience. We can just be quiet and ask questions. But my other question has to do with employee development. I think that there was back in my day, which wasn't that long ago, I promise, but there wasn't as much focus on employee development. It was like you stayed somewhere for your 35 years and then you retired. You weren't developing employees to be, like I mentioned before, mentored so they could move up in the organization. So around that idea, my question It's totally out of left field from that, but it's really how do we retain good talent right now? What do we have to do in our culture to retain good talent? I think one thing is more employee development, whether that's, courses they can take, whether that's mentoring. But I'm curious what else organizations are doing to retain good talent. Not
And
asking.
the traditional school of thought was money.
Yeah.
But we know, again, it's money to a certain degree. From the research that I've read, it says, if you don't have enough to eat, yes, then money is a major motivator. But once you hit a certain threshold, the difference between, staying at a job at 300,000 versus 350,000, that 50,000 isn't where you go, oh, yeah, no, I'm in. There are these other perks. And again, Lisa was saying one group I worked with pre-COVID had a counselor come in one day a month for anyone who was struggling and wanting to talk to a counselor. And those are the kind of perks that make people want to stay.
Right. Stephen, going back, Rayfield wants to know, what do we do as solo entrepreneurs to manage our mental health? Unfortunately, Stephen, we talk to each other, and that's like really scary. So.
Yeah, that's going down a rabbit hole.
Let me say something, and you can close your ears for this, Sanjay. But the four of us don't just do this show. We've been together as a mastermind group for a long time, and truly, I think that if you don't have, as a solo entrepreneur, some kind of mastermind group, and that's what we call ourselves, a mastermind group, where we can share. I feel anyway, that we can share anything, personal or professional. Not only that, but we understand each other's business, so we can help each other in business as well. And I highly suggest, I don't care if you're a solopreneur or if you're in a large organization, you need that support group, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I think one of the greatest values of that is that we can share the war stories and we can appreciate it. It's an ongoing joke among speakers that our family still goes, "When are you guys going to get a job?" Right? But there's truth to that, and that they're the experiences we have, and they actually, especially as a speaker. So sometimes people think that the life of a speaker is very glamorous, and it is for that 1 hour you're on stage, right? Because then people know who you are, and you're making them laugh, they're clapping and standing ovation, all that stuff. But it's a ridiculously lonely business, because what do we see? We see a stage for an hour, but then we see a hotel and an Uber and an airport. And so to have people that we can either bounce ideas off or share those war stories, or, hey, have you ever had this happen to you, or commiserate, it is so valuable. And that's very good for mental health. And I mean, the four of us, even silly things like, hey, I'm playing with this new logo. Hey, I'm looking to change. What do you think of this name for this new program? And we'll bounce that off each other. And the core, or what we are is we're a mini organization, but the culture is such that we have created a place where we can have healthy conflict, we can speak our mind, but we truly believe that we're there to help each other, which makes the conversations and the value amazing.
Yeah, sorry, I'm listening and I'm reading at the same
there's
time.
essays being written, and I'm not.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'll start with Corinne's. I know everybody can read it, so I don't want to double dip, so to speak. But for example, communication skills, much easier to communicate with others who have also learned good skills. So she brings up the point basically that not just employee development, but everyone needs to participate and be engaged in employee development so that everyone's lifting their skills to a new level. You want to address Frederick?
Yes, Frederick says, our development focus is more proactive as we look into the near future at the coming leadership gap. We are working to provide opportunities today that prepare our employees for the challenges we need to conquer ahead. Coaching is a key part of this program, as well, helping employees practice new skills and refine them.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what it is. It's always, again, it's always a gap analysis. Where are you? Where do you want to go? And how do we close that gap?
Yeah.
And
I'm going to refer to Anna's comment, because this is a passionate area for me, and that's motivation. Yes, we have to find out what motivates people, but if you ask them what motivates you, you rarely get an answer, because people just have never really considered it. And they'll joke, they'll say food, right? But the one thing we have to realize with motivation is that we have to understand that we can't motivate anybody. That's the key. I have my 4 rules of motivation. And number 1 is you can't motivate anybody. my role, Sanjay's role as a speaker, even here to some degree, is hopefully to create an environment where people are motivated to go do something, but I can't motivate them. And if you're a leader in any aspect of your life, your role is to create the environment in which people are motivated to go do something, but you can't motivate them. And the second rule I just want to throw out is everyone is motivated. You ever had that experience, Sanjay? I don't know, in your way back when, well, you never had a corporate life, so to speak. So, but way back when, I remember walking down the hall with my boss. This was right after college, and I was a supervisor. That was my title. And here was a woman that came in every morning, put her feet up on her desk, drank her coffee, read her newspaper. You know what a newspaper is? Just want to make sure. Anyway, and did nothing. And I turned to my boss. I said, "What are we going to do with Jane? She comes in every morning. She sits there. She does nothing. She's just not motivated." He looked at me and he said, "Oh, yes, she is. She's motivated to sit there and do nothing, right? Unless you're dead, you're motivated." So sorry, Anna, I got off on a tangent, but I think it's important to understand that that's a tough conversation to have with people, but there are questions we can ask to find out what motivates them. Money is a motivator, not always, Stephen.
Yeah, and again, money is a motivator to a certain degree, and then beyond that, people want to be enriched. The idea of the motivation piece that you're talking about, I 100% agree, and that is everyone's motivated by something. The problem is when they aren't motivated by the same things we're motivated by, we tend to think they're not motivated.
Yeah.
So if everyone is motivated by money, it becomes simple. But the problem is it's not. Some people are motivated by money. Some people are motivated by culture. Some people are motivated by being belonged. Some people are motivated by recognition.
Yeah.
And the key is the most astute managers, bosses, leadership type people recognize what each team or group is motivated by, and they speak to that group in a way that appeases that motivation.
Yeah. Stephen said, by the way, that if you ask, that's generally the first answer is money. Anna, I'm wondering if there is a link to the guide that you could put in the chat box. Otherwise, I don't know how we would do it centrally. Maybe if you want to send it to me, I'll put my email in. If it doesn't, oh, she says will do. So maybe that'll work. In the meantime, my email's on the screen. If you want to send it to me, I will put it in the notes for this episode on YouTube. For those people who watch it after the fact. But hopefully she's going to get us the link. Greg says engagement is the pathway to motivation. It's true. People build the ideas, relationships that drive success if they're engaged. And that's what we've talked about over and over again.
So talking about money, I'm going to tell a quick story. I had a guy that was working for me. I mentioned this a few times that I own a whole bunch of FedEx routes. And so I had a manager, and he's this guy, right from day one, just a superstar, just amazing, does well. He runs it like it's, he's invested. He's 100% kind of in guy. And I was running a route with him. We were driving, and like he was driving and I was in the passenger seat, and we back into this shack in the middle of nowhere. And we start loading up high-end computers into the FedEx truck, and like electric scooters and like all kinds of fancy stuff. And so I was kind of perplexed by it. Anyways, we start driving away, and I say to him, I say, I wouldn't mind one of those scooters. And he goes, why don't you go back and ask them where they're getting them and see if you can get one? And I was like, yeah, let's turn around, let's go back. So we go back. And so I start talking to the guy, and he's telling me this business model, and they're just what's a value-added reseller, and they're shipping these products from other parts of the world, and they're just repackaging them and selling them. And I was like, oh, cool. I said, can you hook me up with an electric scooter? And he said, sure, if you don't mind a refurb or an out-of-the-box thing, I can get you a good deal. I said, what's a good deal? He said, oh, I don't know, these things retail for $700-800. He goes, I could probably get you one for $250. I said, I'll take two. I was going to give one to my kids and one to my dad. So he says, come back on Friday and we'll have them. So I jump into the truck and I tell my manager, what happened. And he says to me, he says, hey, you know what? If those scooters are any good, let me know, because I've been wanting to get one forever, but my wife would kill me if I got one. But that's a really good deal. So fast forward, Friday, I go pick up the scooters. I go to the station. I call up the manager. I said, you need to come to the station right away. And he's like, what's up? I said, I'll explain to you when you get here. So he shows up, and I give him one of the scooters. And I said, this is a thank you for doing such a kick butt job. And I said, and if your wife says anything, tell her that the boss said it's a company vehicle. And so, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is it cost $250 for me to get that scooter for him. I could have put $250 on his paycheck, and it might have been a motivator for a little bit, but the relationship deposit that we made with that interaction and that transaction is phenomenal. And to this day, he still says thank you and all that kind of stuff. But and I wasn't doing it, to be clear, I wasn't doing it to try to win him over. I was doing it because he had a genuine interest. It was of value to him. It was a motivator for him. And I was in a position to do it, and he was deserving of it. And that's why I did it. Would I do it for all the employees? No. But in that particular case, I understood the motivation, and it went a heck of a lot better than $250 would have gone in terms of money.
You know, I've heard you talk about relationship deposits in the past. I love that. I've used it over and over again. Thank you. But I really think that's what it's all about, right? It's how do we make deposits in those one-to-one relationships with our people?
Yep.
Excellent. No one's paying attention to us. They're all interested in Anna's guide. So I copied it, and I will put it in the show notes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah. I want to go back, if we can, for a second, because I think that part of what we haven't discussed, we talked about employee development a little bit, but I think one of the trends that article was talking about was how employees' voices are going to be amplified, or how we can amplify their voices more. So we all know that one of the reasons that people stay where they stay to work is because they feel valued. And one of the ways to do that is to allow people to amplify their voices. It's really an extension of transparency, I think. You know, letting your employees know what's going on and letting them have input for what's going on as well. Again, in an organization with 8,000 people, it gets harder and harder. But most of us don't work for that large of an organization that we can't allow people to tell us their thoughts, their feelings, their feedback, and it's not just heard, but it's acted upon.
The other thing too is, so 8,000 people or 100 people or 5,000, it doesn't matter the number. It's not one group, because you're going to have subgroups within that.
Of course.
So it might be your department, it might be your floor, it might be your team. So it doesn't have to be everyone. And here's the cool part. It's like, again, having your kid go to someone else's house for dinner and trying new foods. If one little department, a group of a dozen people are doing something, and it's working really well, it's going to be infectious, because the next floor or the next group of cubicles across the way or whatever are going to go, hey, that's working for you, maybe we'll try it. And so both positively and negatively. So the things that work well, people are going to latch onto, and the things that kind of cheat the system, if that's the organization or that's the culture within the organization, that too will catch fire as well.
Yeah. Frederick put voice space. I'm curious, Frederick, if you wouldn't mind, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's something that people recognize, but Sanjay, do you know what voice space is? No. So maybe you can elaborate. I'd love to know.
Remember,
which brings me to a point. Can I put in a plug right now? I don't think now's the appropriate time, but I'm going to do it anyway. And that is, we've said this in the past. We haven't said it for many episodes, and that is, we would love to have any one of you as a guest on the show. If you're interested, please just email me. My email's the easiest right now. Let me know of your interest, and we'll talk and see if that's a possibility. We have such a brilliant audience that there's some of you I would love to have on the show. There are others I don't want, but that's okay.
But I'm here anyway. Sorry. Jeff.
Exactly. Exactly. So please let me know. And Carol, no, you can't wear a clown wig. Yeah, I guess you can. You can do anything you want. So excellent. Well, any other comments? Sanjay, you reading?
I am reading. Yes, I apologize. Slow reader. I have a degree in engineering. We weren't required to read, so that's I need some help with some of the bigger words.
I think that the last thing that I want to address is just that new area I'm kind of focused on. I'll explain. A good friend of mine, Sanjay, who you don't know, all she does, and she has a wonderful niche, is bullying and incivility in the workplace. And she's built an entire organization around this now, 12, 13 employees. I think that we have to tackle workplace toxicity. I think that's a huge part of culture right now. You know, having good relationships is one thing, but I think we really have to look at your bottom 10 if you want to put it in those terms. And I'm wondering how you would suggest we tackle that bottom 10 instead of just putting up with them.
Yeah. So again, in my language, what I would say is we always want to do is we want to neutralize the bottom 10. And I'm using a very specific word on that. Neutralize to me means you spend the minimal amount of time, energy, attention, and thought so it no longer draws resources. And what a lot of times people have a tendency to do is they go, oh, that's the bottom 10, or that's the stuff that's not working. We need to fix it. We need to make it right. We need to turn it to a strength. And I'm going to suggest that usually ends up wasting resources and burning efficiency and burning bridges and hurts relationships. So what we want to do is, let's run through an example. Say I'm implementing a new change within the organization. We're trying to get people to latch on and buy into this new software. And you're going to have people who are all over it, who want to do it, and those are your top 10s, and this is the greatest thing ever. And then you have this bottom 10 that's like, oh, they just changed it 6 months ago. Why are they changing it again? And they're huffing and puffing. And then you have the group in the middle. And with the 10-80-10 concept, the group in the middle is going to go to whichever group is more empowered. Whichever group has more social influence and accolades will shift them up or shift them down. The tendency is to go, hey, if I can win over the bottom 10, if I can get them singing the praises, then I can get anyone to win over. I can get anyone to start using it. But the problem is, it's a really, really ugly battle. And you're going to fight, and you're going to get demotivated, and you're wasting all the resources and energy you could have been helping to implement these folks. So in this particular case, what we want to do is get them off their soapboxes. If they want to bitch and complain, let them, but don't give them a platform for doing it.
Don't amplify their voices.
Don't amplify it, right? But one of the ways you amplify is by engaging. So you want to shut it down. You want to you don't want to argue with them. What you want to do is the top 10, the people that are doing it, you want to showcase them. Hey, look at Billy just implemented this and increased his sales 10%. Oh, Sally did this and she did that. And so all of a sudden, what you want to do is win over the majority 80. Because the majority 80 falls to top 10, then the bottom 10 are kind of looking around going, well, everyone else is doing it. Wait, I'm going to join. Or they're going to go, this isn't what I signed up for. This organization sucks. And they're going to leave. You get your natural attrition. Right. So again, the idea isn't to win them over. The idea is to empower and give a platform to the people that are behaving the way you want to. And at the same time, the people who aren't, you want to shut them down. You want to mute them as best as possible, neutralize with my language.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. And I think it goes back to amplification. I think that we're giving them that bottom 10 outlets to do the complaining, and we need to shut that down.
So a great example, this came up a lot during virtual stuff, was when people are talking about vaccination. And this isn't get a vax, don't get a vax. I don't care. I'm not trying to be political. But when people would ask, how do you get people to give vaccinations? I would say the worst thing you can do is argue with people on a platform, whether it's a podcast or a newspaper or television program, and give them the voice of, oh, I got a shot and this bad thing happened, or so-and-so got a shot. What we want to do is be doing the opposite, which is, this is assuming you want people to get vaccinations. On the flip side, if you're on the other hand, which is the top 10 is not getting vaccinated and the bottom 10 is getting vaccinated, then you want to encourage that behavior.
Yeah. Greg, we'll finish up with Greg's last statement. Don't engage, really. Our mantra is engaging every mind in getting better.
Yes.
Okay, don't even comment.
That's qualifying. You're saying and getting better, because
Yeah.
sometimes engaging some minds gets you worse.
Right, absolutely.
So
Well, I'm going to cut it short. I've enjoyed today. I hope that everybody else has enjoyed today. Sunjay ranting and me trying to keep him in rein, but that doesn't always work. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you for being here. Don't forget, if you want to be on the show and be a guest host, please let me know. Our next show is when, Sunjay?
I'm going to guess the 30th of November.
Well, no, you don't have
2
to give
weeks
a
from now,
date.
every other Wednesday.
We just know that it's
I was doing math. I was got excited.
I know you do get excited about math. So 2 weeks from today, please join us. I know that we have a lot of the same people every single show, and that's wonderful. But why not bring a friend? We'd love to have more people here as well. And thank you. Thank you for your loyalty, and thanks for being here.
We will see you folks every other Wednesday.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.